Good evening, all of you. Welcome to Digiterati's live series, and today we will be walking through Angular. Angular is a very interesting subject which has found its way in a very deep-rooted manner in the web application. Much more than the languages, which has traveled over a period of 20-25 years of evolution within a short span of time. Angular has become an irreplaceable component in the web application. So which part of the web application does Angular play a major role? Angular plays a very important role in terms of the front end. So the moment when we say front end, there would be a question like, don't we have HTML? And we have had improvements in HTML after a long time recently. Doesn't that help us to achieve it? Yes, we do have HTML. And there are a lot of things that are available as controls and tags in HTML itself. But adding to that, we do need Angular to help us to achieve certain tasks which we will be seeing. So if you look at the front-end component of any web application, we have HTML in place. We have JavaScript in place, and also we have CSS, the style sheet in place, cascading style sheet in place. Along with that, we also have Angular. So Angular and Node.js, they go hand in hand. There are specialized IDEs for working on Angular. We could use it along with Python or Java or any of the .NET framework languages. Anything, whichever is our application, we will be able to use Angular. So is that, it is like omnipresent. Yeah, exactly. So like what we call everywhere, we will be able to use it along with any combination of a language. Even if it is, and majorly in single page application, you would have seen today that a lot of applications are single page application. A single page application majorly thrives on Angular. And if you look at this, if you have seen any single page application, the page works like this. That is, you have the menu bar on top, and from the menu bar, when you click, the page navigates and shows. So these kind of populating the data, populating the images, videos in a single page, but still keeping it segmented and still showing it to you, giving you a view of, you have multiple tabs, multiple pages, is all possible by using Angular. With this brief introduction, let's walk into it. Today's live show, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm not going to walk into major techniques of Angular, because from where we started as Angularjs to Angular 10, there has been a very big growth in Angular. So I may not jump into the great tricks that we do today with Angular, just walk you through a mild flow of what Angular is, how it is important over HTML and JavaScript in our application, and slowly walk you through some of the popular examples that are already there, and take you through a few websites which are standing as a very good evidence, as an ambassador by its own self for Angular. So let's move on to see Angularjs and Angular. Yeah, so we started off as Angularjs basically because it's an add-on to the JavaScript, and it's more a combination of these things. We initially called Angularjs, and today we call it singularly as Angular. And as I mentioned a while ago, this is where we use it, that is web designing. Why in web designing? We do have a style sheet, and in major applications we also go for master pages where we have our design, and we have all these ready-made templates that are available as style sheets which we will be able to use. Still, there are certain portion of the components that we are not able to achieve, which we will be able to achieve by using Angular. Okay, there are few things which are not possible with Angular, and for which we have something like Bootstrap and other things. So my focus today is to tell you about a few features that are possible with Angularjs. And it is on the client side and it is lightweight. Yeah, that is what we look for. Today, if you see, most of the browsing happens only on the mobile device. We hardly use PCs or desktops to browse. 90% of the browsing happens on the mobile device. So that means it needs to be okay. We do have rich mobile devices. When I say rich, with a very high configuration, as good as a laptop or a PC, but still we need the connection may not be that good. It may be a fragile connection, but still we should have it. So that's where AngularJS plays a major role, and we look forward for smaller piece of code. With JavaScript, almost it's like a programming language. We write functions and we write our own functions to achieve certain tasks that are important for our current activity, but that makes our application a little longer and lengthier. And JavaScript, as you know, as it comes with the HTML, anybody can intercept, anybody can open it up and they can see the data. Of course, here also you have this design view into which you can go and you can view the code view and you can view the code, but still there are places that we would be able to hide certain portion of it. It is extensive. So when I started this example of Angular, I told you about this single page application. And also, if you see, we are today in an environment of MVC, MVVM, MVM kind of applications. In such places, the purpose of going into MVC is that we will be able to change just the view, just the way in which we get the data, that is the data manipulation, just the controller part of it. So in any such way, we should be able to make changes only into that component. That is possible with Angular, and we will be able to add more and more new things that are coming up. And it could be tested singularly for that unit alone as an entire application. All these testing components and things also works really beautiful with Angular, making it a very important one. Now, what are the features that are now? As I am introducing Angular, I'm starting off from the basic features of AngularJS and going to walk into Angular features. So it's a very simple thing like a HTML template. So if you know HTML, it's very easy for you to easily upgrade into Angular. And once you come into Angular, you have to upgrade and update yourself on a day-to-day basis. And if you see, this front-end part of the application has been growing in such a way that every day there is a new feature, every day there is a development. Nobody wants an archaic old format of website, and you want flashy. Today the most important thing is the flashy, and that pops up with a user experience. As I move the cursor, it gives me more insight into it. That kind of we call it as a responsive website. So if there is a responsive website that I am looking out for, the responsiveness should come from the client window. It shouldn't expect any feed from the backend. So I'm repeating here, there are two major components of a web page. One is a front end and another is the backend. So backend predominantly lies on the server. It is where our database could be. It is where our server component could be. So the classic web application was working in such a way that anything the user interacts with the application, it would take that information, go to the server, and from the server it gets validated and comes back with the information, leading to a time delay, a latency, a waiting period. But today we would want everything to happen like a jazzy website. So the moment I click, I want more information. So for the responsive website, so how do we get it? So well within the HTML template, we're going to have this Angular or AngularJS. So this is a very simple trick like the plain old JavaScript. Yes, that is what we are going to work here. And the major features are like this dependency injection. So how the dependency components can flourish and we can use it. Form validation, of course, HTML5 has all these validation techniques, but additionally there are certain things like the customized validation that I would like to do in a web page. I will be able to do it with Angularjs. Then we have something called promises and directives. Directives play the major role as far as the Angular application is concerned. So then the data binding, yeah, along with the dependency injection, the data binding, most important thing is data binding. Even if it is a simple text box or a label, how do I bind it? Because most of the e-commerce site today that we know are designed by using Angular. That means there is going to be a database, any kind of a database, it doesn't matter. And from there, we are going to access the information and use it in here. Yes, so that's a very important thing here. So the data binding, full testing element that was already mentioned, but still there. Deep linking for dynamic pages, of course. So when we go into this MVC and any kind of this architecture, how do we link with the data? So whether you are, whatever is your database, whatever is the pattern in which you are using it, and how do you link your data into this location, and how do you bring that information from your data to your application seamlessly? That's even more important. So, excuse me. So anything like this, that the linking of pages and dynamically in an e-commerce website, I may cater to, let's take a very simple garment as a choice of my website as an example. In garment, I may have for men, women, kids, boys, girls, so the category. So, I may not load everything to you right at the beginning, but the moment you click, I want to give it to you immediately. So these things are really possible here. Then the directives, stateless controllers are a few things that we can very, very easily do. So what is that we are going to do with this template? If you look at this template, in HTML template, we are going to use such an additional markup. We all know the HTML template, right? So we have a HTML tag and the body and other tags. Yes, we are going to use all of them. Additionally, we are going to have a few things to accommodate Angular. And we have directives. So this directives will help the HTML to blend and to extend the extra hand to have certain attributes and elements. Yes, to achieve certain activities. We have these directives. Model, the data will, the user, what the data, whichever the data that the user can view and with which the user would interact. That is what we call as model. Model is not referring to the design or the model of any data. It is referring to the actual information or actual data. And the scope, the model is now again, these things will lead us to talk about MVC. So in MVC, we have something called as a controller. Controller is a person who will control the routing, that is, which one leads to what. So when you ask for men's garment, what am I going to show you? And when you ask me for women, what am I going to show you? So that's what, I'm just giving a simple, straightforward example. It could lead into further details as well. So it's for the plain understanding. If there is a lot to scope, expressions, very simple, it's like a JavaScript, and all we would use is a double set brace to refer to any of the expressions that we are going to use here. And a compiler, the compilers are very easy. It will parse the template, it will initialize the directives, it will evaluate the expression, and it will fetch the data. Now, coming to talk more about it, we have filters, the view controller, all these are there. I'm not going to go into the details because I would like to show you something, understand how Angular is working, and still come back and talk more about it. Because as we do and as we talk, it gives us more confidence and more well informed when we talk about it. And so let me just start with a very simple example. So the thing that I have told you until now is that we have this HTML template, and within that HTML template we can make minute modifications or make that blend and work for us. Yeah, so that's what we are going to do now. So let me just to save time, I have already opened certain components and left here, so it will be easy for me to access and show it to you. So here, as you see, I have a HTML. Okay, a simple HTML page. Of course, there are many IDEs that are available. You can work on any of the IDE, the most popular one being that Visual Studio Code. If any of you would be interested in learning, upskilling in Angular, please go to code.visualstudio.com and download the IDE. It is very comfortable for you to use. I do have Visual Studio Code. You can see here, this is Visual Studio Code and you can use it. If you are interested in working on CLI, this one another important feature. Those of you who are on Mac and other machines would also love to use the CLI. In that case, please install Node.js, and on command prompt itself, you would be able to install npm install, and you will be able to install Angular. Right, now I want to keep the task so simple, so I'm just going ahead with the notepad. I have a HTML notepad here, and I have the head. In the head I've just added a script, and the script is saying that I have angularjs.org the angular.min.js. When you work on IDE, you have this added facility that the AngularJS scripts will be available as a package or as a bundle, and you will be able to right away drag and drop them and use them. I'm using a plain simple notepad to do. I basically love to keep it clutter free. So now, this being a simple HTML notepad, how do we now convert this into an Angular application? I'm starting with a very simple one. Let's assume that how do the introduction of the script alone does not guarantee us that our HTML page at the moment is an Angular page. No, it is not. We need to bring in what is called as ng-app. So this ng-app is a tag that could be introduced anywhere in your HTML. Supposing you want your entire HTML to be an Angular page, you can introduce it on your HTML tag itself. Supposing the body to work like an Angular, you can keep it, or if you want a particular div, you can keep it there. So this is again a flexibility. You don't want to have your entire HTML page as an Angular page. You can just retain a particular portion of it. So now let me start with the portion, then we will go to the body, and we can also have it on our entire HTML document. So I'm introducing this div alone is going to work as an Angular div. Okay, so let me just say input. I'm going to have a simple text box and say hello, hi, something like that. So I'm using ng-model. So that means I'm going to have some data. So the name of the model is name, and type is equal to. So I'm going to have a text box, and using this text box, whatever is coming up in this text box, I'm going to use it here furthermore to display something. So h1 FB Live. So I'm going to take you to Digitrati's FB Live on. So coming here is whatever we are going to have in that. So I'm going to have this information on my name tag over here, and I close my h1 tag here, and also I'm going to close my div here. So this is the simple thing here. Angular notepad. Let me save this. Right. I have my folder here. So this is the Angular. You can see this one coming up. Okay, Digiterati is FB live on Angular. So this is the key here. Can you see it? As I key in itself, it gets updated, which was not possible with HTML and JavaScript. Now it is possible here for us with Angular. So as I do, so this is what we call as instantaneous or responsive website that reacts immediately as and when I do. So this is the most important feature of AngularJS. Now coming back to what we were working on, I've just introduced to you this directive called ng-model. ng-model is referring to some data. So what is the data? It was referring to the data that was coming up in the text box, and we were able to use it, and the set brace is the Angular expression. So we got that information and displayed it here. It sounds so simple, right? So this way we will be able to have data in our program, and we can fetch that from the controls and use them in our application. It is very simple. Now always the applications won't be very simple, straightforward getting the data. We may have to do some other tricks also with our data. So let me now take you through some arithmetic operation or something that we would like to do in our page. So let's say in the same page I would want some arithmetic operation to be done. Yeah, so I just would want to say 2 plus 2, okay, is equal to, so I haven't brought in any other directive or anything. I'm just taking it in a very light pace. So with one or two simple examples, we will walk in to understand some new things that are available with Angular. So though this is a presentation technique, if you look at me, I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing at the moment on conveying it to you, the technical aspect of it. So you can see here, now whatever arithmetic operations we did, it was so simple. All we had to do was use the expression and get the information here. So when you put it, automatically it gets updated here. As simple as that. So is that, you can have any data in any control, in any portion of the body. I could make this as a paragraph. I could make this as a displayable information. I could put this inside a table and have this div as an ng-app and still be doing it. Yes, it is possible for me to do it like that. So this way, whatever we want, we will be able to do it. Now slowly, I'm just going to introduce to you something called binding. So a binding helps us to bind a control with our Angular. So let me just bring the binding. Once we know the binding, I would like to design a simple kind of a registration form. So let's just have a look at the binding and how binding works. So to do that, I'm just going to remove it. Now that we know, I don't need it anymore. I'm just going to take off this. So this binding, I'm going to do the binding, and this we are now fairly familiar with ng-app, so I'm going to introduce this at the body itself. All right. Now again, the same simple arithmetic activity. When we start, it's always nice to take simple, small steps. My guru and my boss always used to tell me, when you learn cycling, the first thing is monkey piddling, right? So I'm kind of taking you through the monkey piddling or learning to cycle with the use of side wheels. Yes, we are starting with simple steps. Once we know that, we can take off and fly to greater heights. So this, I would just bring in a tip here. I'm going to do the same simple arithmetic operation that we did with the expressions by using this binding activity. So when I say I'm going to do the binding, that means that I'm going to have a text box, and in this text box I'm going to have some data, and by using ng-bind we are going to work on that. So to do that, let me just say of course, this is a HTML tag. So if I need to get data, I need to have this input type equal to text. That's the text box that I should have here. Yeah, I have it. Now you all now know that if I have a control and I have to use it in Angular, I have to use ng model and give it a name. I'm going to do the arithmetic operation. So I'm going to call this as num1. That's my way of naming it always. So I do it like that. And now I'm going to have one more text box. So this would be also input, and the type would be text. Okay, so we'll come to the nitty-gritties. Num2, this would be num2, and closing the text box here. Now I'm going to have a span, and in this span I'm going to have the ng-bind. So ng-bind is another directive. We are going to do the binding, and by binding I'm going to say it's going to be an1 plus an2. Okay, and also I can do this. Let me close the span. Okay, so also I can use this expression to get this information. Oh, num1. Num1 plus num2. Okay, so these are the information that I'm going to have. Let me save and run it here. Now I have the two text boxes that are available here. So let me put some number 24 and okay. So now what is happening? It is just concatenating the data. So why is it concatenating the data? Because I have used it the plus symbol. Now please look at this. Now if I have to do this one, I just say minus. Okay, now let me just take it here. Now it is 0. I'm putting some number, and I'm putting some other number. Okay, so the second one is where I made the changes, where it is getting the result. The first one was the output of the summation, that is still concatenating, whereas in the second one where I used it, I have done the additional calculation of this, so it is getting that is minus minus becomes plus. So that way it is getting that output. So this is yet another simple way of doing with our interactive. So as I put, it's like this. So when I buy something and add to my cart, when I add one more item, the total should be calculated immediately, and it shouldn't be waiting for any response from the backend, right? So this is what I'm going to use. And now if you could visualize, right after this, if you go and see a website, you will immediately be able to figure out what is running behind this, right? I go to any shopping cart and you just drag and drop or you just check the checkbox, and immediately your total increases. So you now very well know how is this working. Now that this is beautiful, now we know what is a control, what is an ng model, we know how binding is done, and we see that how span is being used. I'm slowly going to go to yet another directive, ng show, to show some information to us, and this I'm going to do it by using a simple validation screen, because validation is a very important thing that we do with Angular. So let me just go ahead to do that. In order to do so, now that whole form is going to work for me as an Angular form. So I'm going to go here and get that ng-app on the HTML page itself. So I wouldn't need this here. Let me just take this off, and I'm removing it for me to design a fresh form, fresh HTML thing. Of course, I'm going to bring an element form here, and the name of the form, let me keep it as FRM or something. Okay, so this is my form, so let me close the form. Typically, this is like a validation form. So if I get some input and validate it, that would look nice. Today, universally, any application menu, just check in. They ask you to become a member or sign in. Sign in happens with your email ID. So let me assume I'm having a page to which when I use account. So let me also put a head here. Oh, let's say registration or validation or whatever it is. Okay, so it's just namesake. It's not going to do anything. So now moving on to the activity. So I'm just going to go and do some validation. So to do this validation, let me just bring in a div here, and in this div, let me introduce a few things that we will do. Let's close the div as well. Okay, now I'm going to have a text box in which I expect my end user to key in the email ID, because I'm going to validate with your email ID. So to do that, I'm going to have an input type. I hope you know that there is an input type called email itself, so I'm using that. Name is equal to email, and ng model is equal to, I'm going to name it as usr.email, that is meaning user's email. And if you work on IDE, these things will be very simple and easy, but I thought let me keep it clutter free here. Span ng-show. And I'm so used to working on Visual Studio, and it is very, very easy to work there. So I'm going to show whatever is in this one. So we, in our form, from the form, what am I going to do? From the form, I'm taking the control, user.email, that's the control, and I'm going to say it is invalid. So I'm just getting it. Supposing your email ID is not in a proper form, I'm going to say it is invalid. So this is what we would want to do at the moment. So I'm just going to say invalid. Okay, so this is the one. So let me close this span. So simple thing we have designed, expecting the user to give the email ID. See, I have not given the dimensions of the email ID or the text box or anything. So design, alignment, none of those I have taken care, so we can do that. I'm just saying if there is an email is given and if it is in the proper format of an email. And let me also close this one. So now let's just have a check here. Okay, so we are supposed to provide the email. Okay, so I'm going to say www.pichu. Okay, and okay, so it is not validating my form dot. Oh, made a mistake here. It is the name. Okay, so I'm still going to go ahead with. So you can see that the moment I say www dot, no email ID can be like this. So it is invalid. And one of my favorite email IDs is a@a.com. It is a valid email ID. Supposing I do not give anything, it is also valid. So another thing that I am missing is I haven't made my controller mandatory control or important, the required field. So it's a mandatory field. Let me bring in the required parameter here. Now it is required, so I wouldn't be able to escape without that. So it is a mandatory field and now invalid. Now let's go one step forward. When I show ng-show, I want to show that this as an error message, and the error message should be also in the correct formats, meaning if I do not give any data, it should tell me that it's a mandatory field and you have to give the data, and when I put the data it should validate the data. So how do we go about that? So let me now go, and the whole thing I'm going to do it on my ng show. So two things I need to do. One is to make it a mandatory field error message, and then on receiving the data, validate the data there. So here, email dot error. So this is, it's a dollar error. So there are two things, error. So what error is that I'm looking out for? This dollar error is for a required field. So it has to check whether it is a required field and give us information. So in that case, it's going to say it is a required field. Okay, or mandatory, or please key in data, something like that. And when it gets the data, it needs to validate, and on validating the data, it needs to confirm the data. So now I will say email dot dollar error is for the validity of the data. What is it? To check if it is email. All right. So let me just mark it here. Okay, so in that case, this is invalid. Okay, now let's close this. It becomes very simple. Within few lines, we would be able to get this validation. So as the page loads itself, so you can put these asterisks and mark it in red color. You can do all those stuff that you see. Now I need to put the data, and I'm just giving my property mail ID. It's fine, and I give inappropriate one, it says invalid. As and when I key in itself, it keys in. When I remove it, it says required field. So it's very simple, and in exactly 5 minutes we have designed our data. Now let me also bring in a password and a button, and with which my registration form would considerably in a neat format. So you can put the label, you can put them in a table, align them and all that. Basically I'm a bad designer, so I'm not venturing into that area. I don't have the patience to design it. The technology is what I focus on, so let's just venture into it. So now I'm going to have a password field, and you know that we have this password field, so I'm just going to go bring that here. So password, and the name is also password, so let me not forget it. So that would be the name, and ng-model. So this is important for us. So the ng-model, I have already used USR, so let me use here also USR and passwords. I could have changed it. Okay, fine, never mind. Now that we know it is a mandatory field, let me make it here as it is a required field. Now let me just add span here, and this is going to be the ng show, so that means it's going to show some information. And what is it going to show? For the form, under the form we have the control called password, and for the password I'm going to get the dollar error. So the dollar error is going to be like okay, now let's keep it like this, that password is mandatory, minimum 5 characters and maximum 10 characters, anything like that, uppercase, lowercase, whatever you want, we will be able to build it. Let's keep our task very simple. So so first thing is I want to make that password field as a required field. So $.error is a required, and required passwords. Key in your password is what we are going to say here. Now in stages we can execute. So let me just save this and just go ahead to see what is happening to the page. So there is something, and let me take this a.com, and I'm not keying anything. Oh, I haven't got this message. So what are we missing? Form dot password dot $error dot required. So this one. So the input type is equal to password. Okay. Right. Now, I'll also add the other span ng-show is equal to rm dot password dot $error. Let me just say it as, so now I'll have to add these things here. The thing is, it's ng-minimum length and minimum max length parameters must be added. So let's add that here. ng-min length is equal to 5, and let me make the max length to 8, ng-max length is equal to 10. 8. I don't know that. Okay, so these two I've added to this one. Now let's say $error for min length, the property min length, and minimum 5 characters, and the next one is where I'll go for equal to form dot password $error for max length. Max length should not exceed max 8 characters. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So with this, I'm completing this one. So this div is also ready. Now I'm saving this and I'm just going to go here and refresh and run this one. Right. So as we start itself, you can see this thing comes up. And now let me keep my email ID. It satisfies the condition. I'm going to give a password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I've gone. So it still says minimum 5 characters. The max length is not. I'm giving 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is not working properly. Let me check what mistakes I've made here. So it shows fine to me. Let me just min length and max length. Let me reload the page. Okay, in a minute, I'll just also get the button and come back to this to check this one. And also this, I don't have to give it as, in a single one, I can give it as a combination of other factors as well. What I will do is I'll just get a button and then come back to this one. I'm going to have a button input type equal equal to button, probably the submit button. Oh, button, I'm sorry. So as long as these are not satisfying, my button will be disabled. Only when the form becomes a valid form, the button will be enabled. Like, as we see in any registration form. I just want to do that. So ng-disabled is equal to FRM dot. So the form's validity itself, if you just open the code window, we can see this one. As long as we don't key in the data, it will be in an invalid state. And when the data sits properly, it will move into a proper one. So sign in will be visible for us. And with that, we can close the button control. So I have a mistake in the password, checking it in a bit. Okay, so now I have this email ID. I have 4, 5. Now 6, 7, 8, 9, too long. You can see that. So something. So when it is valid, I will get a sign in 1. When it is invalid, my sign in button will not be visible. So it's very simple that in few minutes we will be able to design our own registration form. So this is a very simple technique that I have shown you to see how we will be able to use Angular in place to correct, and by which we have seen few directives and few simple things on how do we work with Angular. Now I have kept some program already done and for you to show some of the popular examples. One of the popular examples which I would like to throw open is, and again Angular is for a lot of APIs and things, and when we would be able to interact with it. Many editors, I'm just taking some picture, excuse me, it may be some random picture. Okay, on the live, how do I edit a picture? How do I crop a picture? I can do it, and I have given a frame for this. So it is based on that particular frame that it is working. Now I have also given it as a resizable one so that I could resize it, or I can get it whichever way. So this is also an AngularJS thorough technique. One of those that I love so much with Angular is date picker, because most of the time that we have spent, even though we had all these calendar control with our application. One thing is, how do I make, supposing I am Oyo houses or anything, any booking site, I would want you to book only in the weekends and the rest of the days should be disabled. Has been quite a big task, but here it is very simple that I can make a selectable weekend or selectable weekday, need not throw this entire thing open. And most of you who have been into development a long time, you will really agree that even setting a frame for the calendar, that is, I'll allow you to book for the next 60 days, next 30 days, has been quite a big task, but now these are very simple. Now, is that it what we do with Angular? No, Angular means, you can have beautiful, colorful, interactive. There are animations also possible with Angular, and we will be able to do it. So now I'm going to take you through 2-3 popular websites which stand a testimony for Angular to understand how Angular is in place. Maybe in one of the future sessions, we will take one particular feature like animation, or one particular feature of the binding or one particular feature from one of the APIs and use it and show you how it works. So now to give you a taste, a sample of how Angular websites work, Upwork is one of the most popular website for hiring, the equivalent of Naukri that we know. Upwork is a testimony for Angular website, as you see here. So we have these segments, and it is a single page application. As you see, you could navigate to it here, and this is a beautiful navigation that is available on this one Angular site with Upwork. And I will take you through another one where you could see the menu bar, which is like a pullover menu bar. PayPal is yet another example for, you can see this pullover menu bar. Yes, menu bars are part of this and we can do it. And PayPal uses Angular, and it stands as a testimony for Angular usage. And this weather.com. Now this is where the most important critical use and why we need Angular for front-end application comes into picture. As we all know that in our application today, we do not have any standalone application, and for many components we depend on API. If something has been created once, we do not create it one more time, right? And we just call the API and use them. If Angular comes with a lot of built-in directives and facility to incorporate APIs into our application, weather.com uses Angular because it is possible for it to get different geographical weather information. That API works beautifully with Angular. That is the reason that it uses here. So the first example that I gave you is for the look and feel of the website. So here in PayPal, again, you know how the banking payment, that is the key factor, and that API has been incorporated in PayPal beautifully. The weather says the location, the geography, and the weather of different places. It's able to bring and give it accurately by using the Angular.js APIs that it uses it here. Now, again, it's another beautiful example is this wiki one. This wiki one is completely, an interactive Wikipedia that is designed by this Angular, and it looks beautiful. Again, why wiki one? I just have to develop by using Angular, whether you see it on your mobile device or on your browser, PC or on your browser, or you use this specific app. I just have to design one UI. I don't have to design multiple UI. So that's the reason I just brought in this wiki one. I had an airline, but I'm going to skip that. You can see this made with Angular.com shows you how this is done. And Gmail is a very good example for the usage of Angular, and you know how intuitive and interactive Gmail interface is. Yeah, that is Angular. And it's another one, simple one, which I really love is this awards.com. Here people are participating to show their site, and you can just, this is for the transition, the animation that is available in this particular website. It is the site of the day, August 29, 2020. You can see that the interactive and beautifully designed site, the various tabs to which you navigate and how it could be placed on your website, right? And the navigation also, you could see how simply and effectively you can do, and the image editing and the image interaction is all possible by using Angular. So these things make it very simple and easy for us to use Angular, deploy Angular techniques in our page. So some directives that we were able to see today, we have seen it, and we all these if conditions check things are also there. You can make a control read only. We did use this disable. So many directives. This is just a sample what I have shown you. If you go to Angular homepage, you will see too many information that are there. Before I conclude, now what is latest is Angular 10. So what are the important features of Angular 10? We have what is called as a language service. language service. I'm today looking forward for a web page which is seamlessly will convert to any language and show me any other language. So that is what I'm looking forward here. And again, I would also be able to set this default browser configuration. I can set a default browser configuration with Angular 10. Then common J is the import. Many people always complain about that, so that is there. More stricter settings we could go for this, and Angularjs is basically depending on HTML, JavaScript and TypeScript. So that's the thing here. And bundle budgets, that is, we are able to use so many APIs, and it makes it very simple for us to interact with us. These are the top features of Angular 10, and there are quite a good features. These are all coming up bundled over a period of time that these features are available for us, so we will be able to access them. Right, I've just come to the tail end of the session. That today we started off by understanding this Angular, and Angular is a very simple, easy to use technique with a front end, where we will be able to create a beautiful client side with simple techniques of Angular, and going forward to even incorporate any APIs that we would want to in our application, and to make our web page a beautiful interactive web page. So what is the prerequisite for me to learn Angular? All you need to know is HTML. If you know HTML, you can very easily upgrade yourself to Angular. Is it very difficult, expensive? No, you can use a simple IDE like Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is not Visual Studio that you use for .NET applications. Slightly different, so you have to install it separately. And there are also other popular tools that are available, and you can use them. This being my favorite, I just suggested its name. You can use it, or you can also work on CLI. On CLI also you can just set most of the people who use CLI with the Windows, what they complain is setting the path. So if you're interested in working on CLI, install Node.js. After you install Node.js, please install Angular by using npm angular install, and after you install, please set the environment variable path like you used to set path for your Java compiler. Here also you need to set it, then you will be able to work. And I think most of you would prefer an IDE, so use this IDE to do the development. Every day there is a contribution that is happening to Angular. So if sky is the limit, and if you think you are free at the moment with Corona, you are based out at home and you can explore, please explore Angular. If you concentrate for 5 days, you can create a beautiful app, interactive website for your own self. You can find that if someone doing any business, any small cottage business around your area, and you think you want to create a beautiful interactive website, just go click pictures, bring them here, add them, and make a beautiful, because all these, including the payment gateway APIs, are very simple, easy to use with Angular. Right? Please join us on our YouTube video under Digiterati, where all these will be available, and this FB Live will also be posted there. And in case you have any question, post this. You can feel free to connect with us and also post your queries here. I had a wonderful time talking to you all about Angular. Looking forward to more such interactive sessions. Have a great evening, and looking forward for a beautiful festival, Onam. Wish you all a very happy Onam Ashamsagal. Thanks for joining us.